Hi, Jeff Spira here, and I'm going to talk about a voyage today. I've got this series of videos where I talk about different voyages. Some of them are actually happened and they're historical, and some of them are speculated about times in the past where people may have made interesting trips that are not really part of the history books. But today I'm going to talk to you about a real voyage. And back when I was learning to design boats in my college days, I was maybe 20 years old, 19, 20 years old. I worked for a guy named Bill James, who was well, I didn't work for him. I worked with him, sort of. He was a boat designer, and he built commercial fish boats in Morro Bay. And he had his own ideas about boat design, and I learned a lot from him and about him, and I helped him build a few boats. And we were kind of friends. We're friends, and so we'd get together at his place and chat and listen to music. And he was an interesting guy. But anyway, he told me about this book by Harry Pidgeon, and it's called Around the World Single-Handed. See if I can get it in there where you can see it. I don't see it. There we go. Oops. Anyway, the Zoom background is cutting it out, and it was written by Harry Pidgeon, and this was not the days of modern days. This was back in the 1920s when he actually made the trip, which was before all the modern methods were in place, and radios and GPS and all the fun stuff we have now. And he built a boat and sailed it around the world. Now, Harry was not a sailor, a normal sailor like some people, like Josh Slocum was a sailor all his life. Um, Harry Pidgeon he grew up in a farm in Iowa, and had no particular interest about going out to sea or anything else like that. And he just he went to California when he turned 18, and he moved to California to find adventure, I guess. And then he ended up going to Alaska, and he built a canoe of sorts up there, and it was only for use on the rivers. He didn't take it out of the ocean. And then he eventually came back to Southern California and decided that, what, he wanted to build a boat. So his very first attempt at building a boat was a boat that he called the Islander. And I don't know if he bought the plans, or I think he just designed it as he went. I think he looked at a bunch of boats and just kind of designed it as he went. And he built it in Los Angeles Harbor, or on the shores around Los Angeles Harbor. Now, Los Angeles Harbor at the time wasn't anything like it is now. There was open land there, so you could just build it, in just an open area. It was not like it is now. Now it's it's jam packed full of shipyards and unloading areas and all kinds of things. So, but back then it was pretty wide open. And this was his very first, other than the canoe he made, a skin canoe, I guess, in Alaska. This was his very first attempt at boat building, and he was about 19 or 20 years old. And it took him a while, and he built this 26-foot, and it was a V-bottom sailboat, and he built it right in along LA Harbor. And eventually got it all together, and he got recommendations from local boat builders and all that, and just made it right there in the mud, right on the side of the harbor. And it's an interesting hull. It was a traditional sort of sailboat hull. Very low, though. I mean, you did not have standing headroom in it. It was 26 feet, and again, as I said, it was a V bottom. It was not a steam bent boat, but it was planked in a caravel planking, method. So so it was a pretty easy build, and according to him, as he went through it, and he built it pretty sturdy because he figured he wanted to explore the ocean in it, uh, and he ended up got it together, and he took it out and he sailed it out to Catalina and San Clemente Island, which is I go there all the time. It's not very far. This view that you're looking at here is the backside of Catalina Island, and it's this is probably about 40 miles from LA, and that this picture that you're looking at here, and San Clemente Island is probably I'm going to say 20 miles southwest of here, so of this area. So it's another island out there, and now the U.S. Navy uses it. That's where they train the SEALs. And back when I was commercial fishing in the 1970s, they used to shell the south end of the island. Well, they still do now. They still launch missiles from San Nicolas Island, for instance, Tomahawk missiles and stuff, and crash them into the island for practice. But back then, they still had the big battleships, the Iowa and the Missouri and all that were still in service, and they you could hear them booming off the shore. I mean, even 60 miles away in San Diego. You could hear them, but when you were out there, they would chase you out of the south end of the island, and they would launch, the shelling. They'd practice shelling against the island. But anyway, Harry Pidgeon went to San Clemente Island, and with his new boat, and came back, and he thought that was a lot of fun. So he decided that he would sail it to Hawaii, and so he taught himself celestial navigation, used a simple noon shot when he first got started, much in the same way I teach the noon shot, local area noon point for longitude, and noon shot for latitude. And then he got better on it as time went on. But when he took off and he sailed out of Los Angeles in early of part of 1921, and sailed it all the way to Hawaii, and spent some time there, and enjoyed himself for a while, a few months, I think, and then he came back, and he brought another person with him, and they came back from Hawaii. Well, now going to Hawaii and coming back are very different experiences. When you go, you want to run south, because if you run south, you're in the trade winds, which are easterly winds, and they'll take you there much easier. But when you come back, you want to go north, and so you have to go kind of a higher latitude to get into the westerly winds, the strong westerlies. Here in Southern California, we have westerlies. We're about 33 degrees north, so that's really not enough to get much in the way of strong winds. You need to get into the 40s, really, 40 degrees north. But they only went like 36 degrees north coming back. So he brought this other person with him, and who lived in San Francisco, and they came back, and he landed, and then and they had a good time, and he made that decision that summer after he came back from Hawaii that he wanted to sail around the world. So he made a few changes to the boat, and minor stuff, made a good sea anchor and things like that, and he fixed up. He had a wood burning stove in it. I mean, it was a very simple sort of arrangement. Carried 100 gallons of fresh water, and did not have a motor in it. It was just strictly a sailboat. So in November of 1921, he took off and just decided to sail around the world. Now Harry was also a photographer, so he brought his photographic equipment there, and which was which was nice because he got a chance to take some pictures, which I'll show you. I'll post up here that are actual photos of his boat. So anyway, the first stop, of course, from Southern California, from Los Angeles or San Diego, whatever, the first island, if you're going to the South Pacific, the set of islands really is the Marquesas. So you kind of go southeast, and it's a long ways. It's 3,000 miles or something before you run into it. Now you can go west, straight west. I mean, I said southeast. You go southwest, but you can go straight west and go to Hawaii like he did. But and that's about 2,400 miles. But if you're going to go to the South Pacific, which is where he wanted to go, you kind of head southish, and after you leave San Clemente Island, cross the border into Mexico, there is absolutely nothing between here and the Marquesas. So it's a long haul, and it took them quite some time to get to the Marquesas. But that's always a desirable first stop. First the Marquesas, and then of course French Polynesia and Tahiti and that sort of thing. So he took off and stopped in the Marquesas, and he spent a long time, more than 2 years in the South Pacific. He was very into meeting the people, and he really enjoyed meeting the locals and talking with them and all that. So all the experiences that he wrote about and he took pictures of and all that were the local people that he ran across during his voyages. So he went to the Marquesas, and then he went to the Tahiti and the French Polynesian Islands, and he just had a blast. And he didn't need anything really. He didn't have to work, or there was nothing to buy or pay for really. I think he took pictures along the way. So and that was part of his thing when he got back, is publishing pictures along with his book. He wrote this book while he was gone, and he kind of wandered his way across the South Pacific. And there are a lot of islands in the South Pacific, and there's I'm sure you remember, maybe you've heard of them from World War II, the island hopping things, So anyway, he spent quite some time in the South Pacific, and ending up, of course, in New Guinea. New Guinea is is between Vietnam, say, and Australia, and then he sailed between Asia and Australia through the Indian Ocean, and he did that part of his voyage pretty quickly. He didn't. I think Josh Slocum did it as well. He didn't spend a lot of time, stopping in Thailand or India or any places, Ceylon or any of these things. They pretty much all sailed. I think maybe they stopped in the Seychelles Islands or some of the islands in the Pacific there, but they didn't spend a lot of time in the Indian Ocean much. So, and his next stop, of course, was Harry Pidgeon's stop was the south end, the Cape of Good Hope, and the south end of Africa, where he stopped for a while, and then his next main passage was across the Atlantic. Now, in 1921, when he went, unlike Josh Slocum, the Panama Canal had been dug. It was in 1916, I think. Maybe it was 2006, but I think it was open when he came around there, which was like 1922 or something, 23, and so he could go through the Panama Canal. So his voyage across from Africa to Panama was done in one long stint. So again, he didn't spend a lot of time stopping along the islands of the Caribbean or the Canary Islands or anywhere the possible stops he could have made, or along the coast of South America, which would have been, stop in Brazil and, that sort of thing. But so he went fairly directly from there. And then once he went through the canal, of course, it was not too difficult to, to sail north from there back to, to the LA area where he finished his voyage. Anyway, it was a 4-year something voyage, something like that, in a 26-foot home built boat. So it was again, it was not something that people did back then. I've written stories about, I'm actually going to do one about Josh Slocum, but I did one about the Centennial that crossed the North Atlantic, back in the 1800s. But Harry Pidgeon did his in the 1920s, and it was a fascinating voyage to read about. I would highly recommend reading the book. The other thing that is in the book is the actual lines drawing of the Islander, which was his design that he made. Proved itself very capable. I think he built another one, and I don't know the story of it, but I've heard talk of it from other people that he built another boat and did another voyage a few years later, and it was a bigger Islander. But his original one, I think, was 26 feet on deck, and then he had put it was a yawl rig, so he had the spars hung out, and he had a bowsprit and that kind of thing. So it was much longer overall length, but it was basically a 26-foot V-bottom boat, and very simply equipped. Like I said, wood burning stove, 100 gallons of water. Of course they had no electronics then. So, and he just took off with a sextant and some maps and his camera and apparently some writing materials, I guess, and wrote this great story. And it's a worthwhile read. And I suggest that you read it. I'll put a picture of the boat. I'll scan it or a picture of the book on here. You can get it at Amazon. This is my second copy. The first copy I had when I was back in my college days, and I really liked reading it, and I misplaced it somewhere over the years, and I bought this one I don't know, within 10 years ago or so. So because I wanted to reread it, I'm going back and rereading a lot of the old stories that I knew and loved years ago. So anyway, I'd strongly recommend that you read Harry Pidgeon's Cruise of the Islander. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy these, and be sure and like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks.